god, I even brought ice cream. Today's gonna be a great day. What a good day it's gonna be. God, I hope it will be. Otherwise, what an embarrassing and bad day it's gonna be. God, it's gonna be such a bad day. Fuck. Oh, right. We have a video to react to today. I'm pretty sure it's going to be fun. Maybe. Maybe. Most likely not. Most likely not. Right. This is the continuation of the Desperius being baited by Asmongold saga. So we're about to find out what the fuck does he have to say now. Let's start. Let's see, what does Desperius have to say to Asmongold's funny response? And do people want to make bets? Do you think he's gonna show another fucking funny dungeon and say this is Elden Ring graphics or some shit? My expectations are low after last video, but I don't know. Alright, let's check.
And this is like, maybe he can make a second video about this. And
oh, this is why he made the second video. Two grown men comparing horse shit to cow shit. Top content. Final Fantasy 14 Andy arguing with WoW Andy. Who has it better? Got my popcorn here. Let them cook. At least he's like self-aware of what's happening. I think the true crime in this vid is Asmongold calling classic WoW's combat explosive. Huh? Oh yeah, I do remember that. That was a very small, like, minuscule point though. It wasn't really talked about though. What does Andy means? It's basically a... How would I explain it in basic terms? When someone calls someone a something Andy, like Final Fantasy 14 Andy, that means you're a fanboy. Someone is like a warrior only Andy, or healer no DPS Andy, that kind of thing. It's like a fanboy of that particular concept would be like the most simplest way but smartest way to explain it, but otherwise it's just like one-minded track Andy.
Greetings and welcome to another video. As neither I in my 18 minutes nor Asmongold in his 56 minutes
18 minutes, 56 minutes, and this video 7 minutes. Ooh, what are we gonna go then?
Could conclude a fitting outcome to this topic, I want to dive into Final Fantasy 14 vs WoW graphics again, but this time with a slightly more thought out analysis.
Didn't you have a thought out analysis last time? You literally had an editing done, you had something prepared in advance. Like, you scripted out the points you want to talk about. That was a prepared video. What do you mean? How much more thought out can it get? To be fair, The Vault, really good fucking dungeon. I love it.
First of all, we are both too passionate about these games.
No. I like that he's already, like, his first point. Asmongold is just as equally as passionate about his favorite game as much. No, Asmongold likes that game. He loves that game, but he's not that passionate. He's not gonna be blindly defending it. He's like, so much React content from Asmongold in terms of World of Warcraft is him shitting on the game. He's not that passionate. He's just been a lot more fucking objective about the shit you're saying.
And it's really hard to find objective values under these circumstances. However, the crux of the discussion laid out that both have quite bad visual fidelity.
I want to say, sorry, let me just...
First of all, we are both too passionate about these games, and it's really hard to find objective values under these circumstances.
Let me just make it just a bit lower in volume. I want to say, the zone he's showing...
However, the crux of the discussion laid out...
In Shadowlands, this zone in particular, I fucking hate it. You know why? Because I played it in the beta, even before Shadowlands came out. You know what I fucking hated it about this?
You pause Andy.
Pause Andy. This is what I hated about this zone. They had like where these like carriages pulled by horses would be going, but sometimes they would be just going up the wall or up the stairs, and they're still there. They're still there, I promise you. And it's like, it's just the zone is fine. I just hated that one bit that like a carriage but of horses was just being pulled like up a case of stairs.
Out that both have quite bad visual fidelity compared to many other games.
Why is he keeps comparing two MMOs to a fucking Elden Ring game? Fuck's sake.
Games on the market, which most commenters and chat agreed on.
What? Hold on. Ghostlands, bro. Hold on, let me see this.
Compared to many other games on the market, which most commenters...
It was a dungeon, open world. True. Clouds? I agree. As a mainly 14 player, yes, WoW is better in that.
Read on.
I see a lot of people fucking disagreeing. Hold up, what the fuck? The art style in WoW is just more cozy. They used to be better at impactful music. This is a really weird segment to grab. Ghostlands, bro. It's like, obviously everyone's gonna agree that our MMO games meant for massive like group and social playing is gonna have a lot less fidelity than single player games on the market.
These two don't shine when it comes down to actual pixel count, realism, and detailed looks of creatures.
How realistic do you want an MMO to be? Are there realistic MMOs? Are there any? Like that actually look like as possible, as close as possible. I guess like New World or whatever the fuck. No, probably not New World. Whatever's like being made in the Unreal Engine.
Characters and environments. All these aspects are absolutely worth an upgrade on both games.
No. No. Do you really want like the minimum requirement for an MMO game to be like fucking 3060 RTX? What are you on about?
Which will happen at least on one of them very soon. On the other...
Okay, yeah, our graphics are gonna be improving within like limits, within like specific like... People are very excited for like the visual updates, but they're not getting just how little that visual fidelity is gonna be improved. It's gonna be like texture, anti-aliasing, stuff like that. It's not gonna be like a full graphic overhaul. So, like, some of the armor is still gonna look blocky and weird. Wait, hold on. What is it? I'm recognizing it. Are they? This is a Final Fantasy Tactics play, isn't it? I'm recognizing some of these fucking statues and clothings. That's pretty cool. I'm more interested in what's on the screen now.
They do offer a distinct art style.
It's like fucking. It's like Lynx's video all over again. I'm more interested in the strats they were using for UCOP than what the fuck he was saying.
Already, that appeals to a different type of audience, and you can find very good looking sequences in both games.
He's showing an RP theater sequence. This is not in the game, my friend, and you still have reshade on.
More often than not. Therefore, while digging a bit deeper into the whole discussion, here's a visual presentation of places and areas in both games that in my opinion look absolutely gorgeous.
Wait, so this is not really a continuation of that whole discussion. You're just about to show a bunch of very pretty areas. As what? Hold on, okay.
Neither of them are enhanced by shaders or mods, both in 4K resolution and the maxed out default set.
People need to get that resolution is not really gonna do much anymore. Like 1080p is like where we peaked. Like we're not gonna go, like what you're gonna see on the screen is gonna rely on a lot of other factors other than just resolution. Like 4K is gonna make the most smallest change. Because a lot of these games are now played like on the ROG whatever handheld, on the Steam Deck. It's like not a lot of people care about 4K 2K anymore.
Settings both games offer without any third-party application. And the final disclaimer, Zach and I are talking about subjective impressions of each game, so please keep that in mind for the further discussion. The first thing I want to address now is the fact...
White Dalaran, of all places. White Dalaran.
Fact that combat fluidity in Final Fantasy XIV is indeed something it fails at, and in which World of Warcraft performs much better. The snappy feel that is missing in comparison isn't compensated, and I cannot devaluate arguments about the engine feeling less responsive. However, the GCD and OGCD system...
How did we go from World of Warcraft graphics into global GCDs and off GCDs? How did we move from, like, I see the title at the top. World of Warcraft versus Final Fantasy XIV graphics comparison. Why are we back on the fucking GCD conversation again?
System tries to address this in a way that makes perfect sense at higher levels, and the more extensive your access to core mechanics and abilities, the more combat gets pushed to the next level and feels more satisfying.
Combat feels more satisfying when you have more buttons to press at higher levels. One of the reasons people don't like playing healers, because the combat is the same. No,
World
whatever.
of Warcraft still wipes the floor with Final Fantasy, and so do many other games when it comes to the intricate responsiveness.
Responsiveness, yes. But just like World of Warcraft has combat designed around add-ons now, Final Fantasy XIV combat is designed around that specific 2.5 GCD. Games are built like that at this point.
Asmongold, however, did make it clear that all of his discontent about FFXIV's combat boils down to this element when he stated combat is bad in his first reaction to Xenosaga.
Something I don't understand is comparing WoW, who's very stylized, to FF that's more realist. They're models.
I wouldn't say they're more realist. They're both like very stylized, only they're stylized in different aspects. World of Warcraft is more stylized towards tabletop RPGs, like more chunky, like figures and etc. That's why like orcs were hunchbacks for so long. That's why they're like, they have the whole meme about having bigger and bigger shoulder pads on their armor. Meanwhile, Final Fantasy is built after like the aspect of Final Fantasy where everything needs to be a lot more stylized, pretty, shinier. Well, not like fidelity, higher, more realistic, but more, you know, Final Fantasy VII was very blocky, but it had that Final Fantasy aesthetic, the art, etc. Final Fantasy IX, I guess 8, but I don't like 8, so fuck that game. Final Fantasy 12 as well. Like, most of the main characters are very slim, they're very tall, they're very handsome and attractive, so there's like, they both have specific styles that they have to contribute to, but it's like, the graphic, like the graphics are established in advance for these games, and it's like, you can only improve so much on them.
We were actually talking past each other for the first 10 minutes of his...
Like, for example, in Legion, World of Warcraft had to increase their, like, requirements to play the game, but it wasn't too much, and majority of that graphic increase was just specifically for space rendition and texture, not anti-aliasing, what's the other one? It'll come back to me later, but it's like texture improvement and more cleaner stylization. That's it. It's not really going to be higher graphic fidelity, at least as far as I'm remembering. I could be wrong with this, it's been ages. When was Legion? Legion was... Jesus fuck, 6 years? 7? 8? Quite a few years ago now. God, I'm old.
To my reaction. Something where I clearly stated I lack the experience and expertise on many other MMOs on the market, I still fired some unnecessary shots at Guild Wars and especially Final Fantasy XI, which I apologize for.
To be fair, Guild Wars looks really good. Graphically, it's in a few generations behind, but it's like aesthetically such a good game.
Final Fantasy XI had been my starting point into the MMO landscape, and its music, zones, characters and story will always remain an affirmative reminiscence to me. While being a bit clunky and some aspects lack the finishing touches that newer MMOs have, it's still being played by many fans of the series or the game itself, which is an astonishing achievement on its own, since this game has been around for 22 years now. So a big shout out.
I'm very tempted to play Final Fantasy XI just to like go through the story and see what's it about. But it's like I played it for a bit, and like the movement and the combat were just hard to say. I would rather play with a rock. But I am interested actually revisiting it at some point.
To all those people still bringing life to Vana'diel for all this time. Alright, now to the actual discussion on graphics again. Final Fantasy XIV's biggest
actual discussion. He's 3 minutes into the video. Now is the actual discussion begins when he has 4 minutes left.
Biggest issue is lighting and shades, which many have pointed out in the comment section, and every player that played the game for a decent amount of time has to admit. I mean, this is the whole reason why we use Reshade, GeForce Experience or other third-party solutions.
Lightning. It's not the lightning itself. It's how the lightning is read. The lightning itself in the game, and this is very visible by a lot of cutscenes and a lot of like specifically combat areas. I'm essentially explaining this as someone who dabbles in 3D as a previously special effects artist. The light, it's not the light that drops on us that is like being projected upon us that is very low quality. It's readability, shadows, readability on the ground. The light itself is fine. It's just rendering Square Enix are very like picky about specifically memory management and optimizing specifically so that everything runs smoothly. There's a reason this game has way more pixels. Sorry, not pixels, polygons than World of Warcraft, but will run more smoothly than World of Warcraft in so many cases. You'll go to Dragonflight, you go to whatever the capital is, I don't remember the name anymore. It's gonna start lagging. It's gonna start lagging, I promise you. Like, some FPS is gonna be lost, but not in Final Fantasy XIV.
And regarding these two, there are multiple posts of...
You also need to keep in mind, Reshade works off of your GPU. That's just an extra instance of the game for you to work with. There's a reason people don't really... It's not against TOS, but you're essentially risking your own PC for this.
Official Square Enix staff members that confirm their stance on accepting those shaders, as long as they only apply a filter on top of the game and don't modify or interact with files of it. And to be honest, this game can look insanely good with decent lighting applied, or even when just letting cutscenes play with any of these filters. So I'm really looking forward to the upgrade in 7.0. I guess when lighting is done right, which does happen quite often, especially in the sad cutscenes, this game has very good appearance.
Yeah, I feel like this is very early to talk about all these graphic comparisons. Especially now that there's a graphic update update is going to be on the horizon. Like these videos are going to be very fucking washed out very soon. Though depending on the update, for all we know, that update might be just poo poo caca.
Nothing to write home about, but also nothing that would ever keep me from playing the game. Basically because installing these shaders doesn't take more than 10 minutes and maintaining them is easier than keeping WoW add-ons up to date. And when it comes to my...
No. Both are tedious, but in World of Warcraft, add-ons are updated with one click through Curse Forge. In World of Warcraft, everything needs to be updated separately. No matter like how many individual but besides Reshade, I know people will use other things besides Reshade, but it's like you still need to individually update those.
My personal problem with World of Warcraft graphics that I felt becoming worse and worse since Warlords of Draenor, and I actually do believe many WoW players might agree on, is the Disney-esque art style they morphed the game into.
Warlords of Draenor had like big graphic increases. Well, not graphic, but stylization. That's when they started like shading a lot of like the green goo upon ads. Like very stylized. And it's like, I get like they're not a fan of Anduin being a very Disney princess looking. Like the most opposite from Varian. But it's like, I promise you, Varian got this same treatment, people would not be unhappy.
The zones, dungeons and cities actually look very nice and have some awesome feel
Manduin, exactly.
design and architecture, but something about the character animations looks out of place to me.
They're gonna be looking out of place for a while. It's like, even if you increase like fine shortcuts of optimization for graphic fidelity, if you start fucking with specifically the animation regs, that can fuck over so many things, because you don't have like, you have separate animations but they apply to the same rigs. You want to improve on those rigs, you gotta improve. Okay, so sorry, let me restart that thought. You want to improve animation, you gotta improve on those rigs. Those characters need more fucking skeletons and bones, etc. Considering like a lot of the cutscenes are CG, but they're still trying to match them to the in-game, so people aren't completely, you know, like thrown out of the game just to watch a fucking cutscene. But to improve an animation engine is just, that's gonna cost way too much for any company. It's just not worth it.
Or at least out of the Warcraft universe that brought me to PC gaming. And I'm a big fan since Warcraft 3. So I personally really like the old school WoW graphic way more than what we have.
We're 4.5 minutes in, he's now gushing over graphics of World of Warcraft.
Now, even if the newer graphics seem to have a higher visual fidelity.
They have fidelity, but again, it all just comes down to aesthetics and just preference in aesthetics. Like, I hope at some point Desperius fucking realizes that Asmongold ranted about aesthetics. That's why he preferred World of Warcraft Classic instead of Final Fantasy. It's all about aesthetics. Nobody in their fucking right mind is gonna look at fidelity and the pixels of of World of Warcraft Classic and think, yeah, that's the good shit.
I think that not only the game did peak in Wrath of the Lich King for many of the gameplay and story elements alone, but also the art style was the perfect culmination of Western comic graphics, but still integrated that well-defined Warcraft-esque theme to it, that always had.
You see, even if you look like from here, this looks very D&D. It looks very tabletop-y, doesn't it?
The necessary.
Like, just the shapes. That is a guy standing like very wide stanced with a sword. And there's a lot of other units. That is like the charm of World of Warcraft, because it's like, you look from afar, it looks very D&D-esque. Well, not D&D, but like tabletop RPG.
Grid to resemble a war-torn world, fighting off undead creatures and demons from other planets, which worked for story development and world building insanely well. For example, Shadowlands never looked menacing to me, even though it should have been the darkest expansion of the game, where in contrast I always felt the looming evil of the Western and Eastern Plague Lands. So I actually agree that from a subjective impression, even a classic World of Warcraft looks better on its overall ensemble.
He's all over the place. He keeps throwing in fidelity and then going towards other. I'm very confused at this point.
That mentioned, the world building on vanilla WoW is actually a masterpiece, and I've.
Also, how do you make an area look scary? If something very orange is what you prefer to scare, that is so subjective. Also, look at these beautiful fucking mountains that are like textured by one thing that's repeated, because you can see like the repeated patterns here just being slapped over.
Nothing but respect for the dev team for creating something that feels as complete as this game does, especially when it came out in 2000.
You also need to understand, World of Warcraft has huge maps that are part of the same world. Their fidelity and graphics have to rely on charm and, you know, the aesthetics, because their graphical fidelity is always going to be lower, because they have to optimize an open world, right? Because you can fly out of, you know, the main city hub and fly somewhere else. In Final Fantasy XIV, it's all instances. Layered instances, but instances. You can fly across one certain aspect of the world, but then you have to teleport to another one.
2004. And Asmongold is absolutely right, the open world aspect is way worse in Final Fantasy XIV, where World of Warcraft still shines to this day.
He is 5.5 minutes in. Is this just a video of him agreeing with Asmongold now?
Having a feel of zones rightfully connecting together and making sense in their environmental design and being good plot devices too. But even though they are different in their world design and art style, without the base game of World of Warcraft and even to some extent Burning Crusade and Lich King, and especially not without Final Fantasy XI, 14 would not be the
No, 14 would be just fucking fine without 11.
The game it has become. So what does it...
Like, Final Fantasy XI was probably part of the progress, but no one thought, what if we make 2 live service MMOs? It's like, especially when 11 was still kind of blooming, when it was still getting updates, it was still working. Like, the idea for an MMO was definitely like a separate decision, not just because it was based on Final Fantasy XI. That is such a brash assumption.
What does it all come down to? Personal preference. And I can tell you that from playing WoW since 2005 and Final Fantasy XIV since 2015. Both of these games are worth your time and money, even including their flaws and gameplay and graphical issues. But instead of listening to 1 or 2 or maybe even 4 people with less hair than the
We're back to this fucking picture, aren't we?
pixels they're raging about, try out these games for yourself to get the actual impression of them. But instead of listening to 1 or 2 or maybe even 4 people with less hair than the pixels they're raging about, try out these games.
Desperius, explain. Why are you showing the stock
From a
market?
WTF.
I like that he's trying to sell the games like, hey, you should try these games. Look at the stock market and the market board, and also pink guy jerking off.
For yourself to get the actual impression of them, rather than following the wild nostalgia of some old nerds like myself or Asmongold. If it makes fun, it's a good game that
Hey, Athens.
earns your time, and if it needs more than one game to avoid boredom, then go for it. Which means, whatever game it might be, World of Warcraft is great, and so is Final Fantasy.
There's a lot of backpedaling from some of the conversations we had before. Let's at least... There you go. So, what that video for? I have no idea. I honestly have no idea, because majority of this video was just like, so, you see World of Warcraft has this, and Final Fantasy has this, also I agree with Asmongold. Next topic. World of Warcraft has this, Final Fantasy has this, both are great. I agree with Asmongold. I'm so confused. What was the point of this video? Like, what is it? Like, at some point he also, like, stopped for almost, I think, an entire minute just to talk about GCDs.
Desperius is just grinding drama, I suppose.
Maybe, I guess. I don't know. Maybe like the last video made enough to pay his sub. I'm not sure. Like, I don't think Asmongold is gonna react to this, because this is just. What was the point of this video? This is just either a lot of backpedaling towards a very neutral position, or I don't know. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what the fuck was the point of this video. Oh well, that was a video, I guess.